buddy.
There you go. Pretty good, pretty good. Weather,
What about it?
66.
Is it? I saw those.
You've been outside today, presumably.
67. Okay, I saw the high and the low today, which for whatever reason it's high 77, low is 70, even though it's 67 right
But
now.
you stepped outside?
Yeah, I've been outside.
Feels amazing.
It's alright, it's way better than yesterday. Yesterday
Yeah.
was so flippin' humid.
Did you see any of the lightning or hear the rain at like 2 in the morning?
Nah, I was sleeping.
Yeah. It woke me up. It was right outside our window. And yeah, it was a pleasant surprise stepping out the door this morning and be like, 66. It's got to be 66. Turn on the car says 66. So there you go.
Yeah, that's weird. We're in May.
Yeah.
We're still getting 66 degrees.
We played disc golf yesterday, and it's pretty muggy. You got pretty sweaty.
It was it reminded me of being back in Houston.
Yeah. And almost didn't play because thought the rain was going to come Friday to Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
But then we did play. It was great, but it was also quite muggy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, it was when woke up at 2 a.m., saw the lightning, walked to the kitchen, got some water, looked out the big kitchen windows at that for a while, and then was like, all right, I gotta go to my sleep. And then when I woke up, it was very bright out, and all day Friday it was the same dark gray, really messing with my sleepiness. And yeah, waking up again at like 8 o'clock, going to the kitchen, and it's like this, where there's no clouds, and it's nice and sunny. It's like a totally different universe. Here for it.
Yeah, although I'm worried we're gonna have a pretty rough summer.
And you should be. I thought it was gonna get to like the 90s soon.
Yeah.
Which I guess it still might. Like this could mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I'm checking the weather now.
I've been seeing things talking about how this could be like a historic hurricane season.
Mm-hmm. Houston got wrecked by all this rain. Like the rain that we saw and were promised that never really came was magnified like 100-fold in Houston.
Even it's on my dad's radar. He was like, he texted me and he's like, you hear about the rain over in Houston and it's spring?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I mean, I don't even know where he would have heard it, I guess, unless it's on like the actual news.
On Facebook, folks from high school were talking about their kids being stuck in school because it wasn't raining at 7, 8 in the morning when the buses come. And then like 10 o'clock it started like flooding over roads and such, so the kids are just stuck in school.
Yeah.
But then also, Mom sent me pictures of Imperial Oaks, which is pretty good at flooding. And Ash's mom, some road out in the country was like washed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty serious down there. But I said this when we were talking about it. I've never regretted moving to Austin. Like, I guess sometimes it's a little bit colder depending on where you are. But who doesn't like that when you're in Texas? It's never rainier here than it is in Houston. It's never tornado-ier here than it is in like DFW.
Although we did have that one tornado touchdown like less than a mile from where we're sitting.
But that
was like a baby tornado too.
And relative to DFW and even relative to Houston, I feel like it came up a lot more in Houston than it ever has here. Tornadoes, I mean.
I've been watching a lot of tornado videos recently.
Yeah, I hear there's a lot of it on Twitter right now.
Well, there's a few like storm chasers that have gotten real good at like streaming their chasing, and I've watched quite a bit of that because like in the past week and a half, there's been all kinds of tornadoes and big storms up in like the Tornado Alley, like the Panhandle up through Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and but in all my tornado video watchings, I was watching this one. It was like the 10 biggest, baddest tornadoes ever recorded or known to man. And one of them in the top 10 hit Jarrell, which is
Yeah.
just a stone's throw north of here.
Yeah. On 35, the rest stop that they have there, it's like fairly new because it was made after that giant Jarrell tornado, and it was meant to be like, if you're on the road, you can stop here and like get into the storm shelter that they have there.
Oh wow!
But it's also all, I don't want to say like tornado themed, but there's a lot of stuff talking about tornadoes and that historic tornado, and it's not like a museum to it, but it's definitely like inspired by.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Tornadoes are wild.
Mm-hmm.
American weather is wild.
Because we're so big, we got a little bit of everything.
Yeah, like because that video I was just talking about, like the worst tornadoes. I was actually watching a video of like a British person, or maybe not British, maybe it was from Spain, someone from Europe reacting to like tornadoes, and since like, all the bad tornadoes happen in here, like tornadoes happen around the world, but they're nowhere near like what we get here.
That's a good point, because you do think of it like with the Great Plains, and certainly there are other Great Plains out there, like the steppe in Eurasia, like where the Mongols are from.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't hear about tornadoes in like Mongolia or any of the flatlands of Russia or anything like that.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's I looked into it a little one day, but I don't remember what I found. But it's.
But tornadoes do happen, and we just don't hear about them.
Yeah, but they don't get as nearly as extreme and as powerful as they do here, and they're so less frequent.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of tornadoes around the world are more like kind of like just dust devils.
Yeah.
Basically, like nothing's too powerful. Like it's not gonna just flatten a whole city.
Yeah, I've seen dust devils. I think probably one of the craziest weather things I've seen ever was Mahoob, but a dust storm, and just taking up the entire sky in the distant horizon, and just a wall of sand coming at us. I think they get that in certain places of the U.S. too, though. I think that's a thing. Like the dust from the ground, like all the way up to the clouds, takes up the entire horizon and comes up to you in places like Arizona.
I wouldn't be surprised, but all those big situations like that I can think that I've ever seen or heard of were some other country.
Mm-hmm. You know what we don't put up with that they put up with in Europe and a lot in Asia is volcanoes.
Oh yeah.
Especially in Italy, where they're just like, we live here. We don't care about that death mountain that's so scenic most of the time. Like we've had Mount St. Helens.
I mean, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
That was pretty big. That was pretty devastating.
And I guess that was big and devastating for an area the size of Italy. It was just like we have a few Italy's worth of land in the U.S.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, so we got the volcanoes too. Our hurricane situation, like most other, like very few countries ever get hit by hurricanes.
Yeah.
Like around the world, and we get hit by them a lot.
Yeah. We got that. Earthquakes, I don't think Europe really deals with.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, like Japan,
Big deal in Asia.
Asia, is the whole just Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
So they got that pretty bad, but I guess we don't really get tsunamis too often, I don't think. Those are pretty big over in Asia.
I know we think of that with Asia. I know that they happen in Scandinavia too, because like a piece will come off of a fjord and displace a bunch of water, and then that happens up there with some regularity too, because of how fjords are. I'm doing this with my arms, y'all.
Yeah. He's fjording with his arms.
He's fjording with his arms. Yeah. U.S. is kind of intense. I like how people in California will be like, oh, Chicago, how could you ever live there? The snow, what do you even do it? People in Chicago are like, earthquakes? What the fuck is an earthquake? The ground moves? No, pass. Strong pass. And we do that too, where they're like, tornadoes, you, and we're like, earthquakes, you.
Yeah. And then just like the differences of like climates, like we can get as cold can get in certain places, and as hot as Death Valley, like the hottest place in the world. That's just everything.
Jared did give me a wake up call on the weather though last summer, when he was like, how hot do you guys think it is in San Francisco? And I was like, it was like 110 here, and I was like, I don't know, like 91, and it was something like so.
It was probably like 67.
I was gonna say that, but it's unbelievable to me that it can be this cold out there. This cold is we're experiencing today in like the height of summer. So good for them. But yeah, I hear you.
Although they got wrecked last summer or the summer before with like a heat wave where it was like it was in the hundreds for a few days, and like I don't think they're built. They don't have like the air conditioners that we have here.
Right.
So when that happens, it sucks. Like, I guess those heat waves that hit Europe last year or whatever, and all those people were dying because like people just don't have air conditioning.
Yeah, that's a mindfuck to us here in Texas. We're like, that's not optional. What are you talking about?
I mean,
I'm talking about no AC.
I've always thought about it like in the future if I ever were to like move up north like I want to, or like anything like that, like I have to have proper AC for my house no matter where I'm at.
Yeah.
It has to be there.
If you don't use it, great.
Exactly.
But not having it is not an option. That's ridiculous.
Right. That's, yeah.
You know what a heat pump is?
In regards to what? I've heard of heat pumps.
Keeping a house cool, or maybe it's hot. I don't know. It's something they do in other parts of the U.S. and Europe and stuff, and I see it on the internet, but I have no idea what it does, how it functions. But it's just something that I think us Texans are ignorant to, mostly.
Heat pump.
I'm picturing a mechanical pump, but I don't think that's what it actually does. I think they're talking about the movement of air, or the movement of hot to cold or something.
Goodman 4-ton heat pump, $4,998.
Well, no, that sounds like a mechanical thing. The Goodman heat pump.
Yeah, it looks like a. I guess let's just say, heat pumps explained. A heat pump uses technology similar to that found in a refrigerator or an air conditioner. It extracts heat from a source, such as the surrounding air, geothermal energy stored in the ground, or nearby sources of water or waste heat from a factory. It then amplifies and transfers the heat to where it is needed.
Interesting.
Gross.
What if it's not needed anywhere? Just shoot it out the top of your house and slowly push your house deeper and deeper into the ground?
Yeah.
I think not.
Or maybe you mount it sideways and just speed up the Earth's rotation a little bit.
Checks out. Alright, weather's cool.
Yeah, that was a lot more weather, more weather talk than I anticipated.
Let's talk about being middle-aged.
Okay.
We are doing so much bird watching lately.
More like bird listening, for the most part.
Oh, Ash's bird watching hardcore. We got this new app. It's called Merlin, right?
Yeah.
I highly recommend you, if you're into birds, listening to birds, watching birds, summoning birds, the Merlin app, highly recommend downloading it. And if you're not, and those things don't interest you, I still recommend downloading it, because it might get you into it. I'm more into it than I've ever been since this app. But it can listen to the same thing you're listening to right now, and with AI tell you, oh, it's this kind of bird, it's that kind of bird, and it's fascinating.
It is pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. I never thought I'd be as into birds as I am right now.
One of Ash's clients turned her on to it,
Mm-hmm.
and what got me real excited about it was Ash was like, I'm going to summon a hawk, and, come do this with me. Walk out the front door, she plays a hawk noise off the app, and within moments, she's like, I think I saw one, and I'm skeptical. She plays it again, and we're looking out at our street, plenty of giant trees, like, across the street, and it's like from right to left. It had landed in a big tree to the far right when she played the first thing. When she played the second thing, that's when I saw it go from a tree on the far right to a tree on the far left. And then eventually like take off towards the field that I'm always talking about where we throw the football or whatever. But she legit summoned a hawk.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm. Presumably the same hawk. I didn't talk about this last week, but a hawk. It must not have been a cat or like a car or whatever, but like got a rabbit, and the rabbit just like chose our driveway to die in, and went under Ashley's car. And then every time she would go to like look at it or look for it, it would be somewhere else. But it didn't look like it could move at all. So I had no idea how it was like getting from where it was to where it was. It wasn't like torn apart or anything. It was like intact. But if you look closely enough, you could see it had like puncture wounds and stuff, and was trying not to move that much. But it must have been like kicking its back legs or something because it was like constantly moving. And yeah, I ended up taking that thing to the field to give it to the birds.
It's sad.
It was sad. It wasn't sad until I scooped it up. Like, for the most part, it was like, oh, that's what happens. Yeah. Animals like to eat. Circle of life. It's a cute bunny to us, but the other animals, it's like, there's lots of mice, there's fewer rabbits, fewer deer, but they're all kind of just the things that do the eating and get et. But yeah, when I scooped it up, it was all frail and helpless, and that got me. But then also, I only lived like 2 or 4 years. And Ashley loves those birds, so feeding those birds is I'm happy to do that too.
Weird.
Anyways, she summoned our hawk, our street hawk. And that got me way into the app because it actually does like play back actual bird noise to the birds that they understand. Merlin.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to summon something. I want to summon an owl.
Sweet. There's so many cardinals. Like, we've been seeing them every time we play disc golf. But now I know like what they sound like, and that's one of the predominant noises. Along with like doves, which doves I've like known forever because there are a lot of doves in San Antonio. And one of my favorite noises, I guess, is dove noise. But doves and cardinals probably make up like 60-70% of all the bird noises you hear around here.
I don't know. I think at least here at this house, grackles.
Oh yeah, you guys do have a bunch of grackles here. We have like no grackles at our place.
Grackles is like 50% of our birds, and then cardinals. Well, doves probably 30%, cardinals 10, blue jays 5, and then random stuff every once in a while. Like I did capture a common nighthawk on the app
Sweet.
The other day around here.
Yeah, it's funny how we're like 6 minutes apart, but our wildlife is so different because you've got rabbits. You got a rabbit stalking you.
Like bun, little bunny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like y'all came over last night and we were all out on the back patio, and there's just like grackles, like 2 grackles fighting over a third grackle, trying to get the chance to mate. A dove just chilling, watching the grackles fight. A bunny just out eating the grass. Like we get a lot of wildlife action in our little neighborhood backyard. I had a direction I was taking that. But yeah, I don't know. We get a lot of stuff here.
Yeah. We had a good run of buns, but we haven't seen a bun in the backyard in quite some time. For us, though, the thing that has been entertaining in the backyard and looking out the front across to other people's yards, fireflies.
We've been getting a few of those around here. Not near as much as we used to get down when we lived down south, in South Austin. Like, that would just get wild, the number of fireflies. But here, we get a few.
I think out, especially looking out the front door, I bet in the field it's insane, especially, like, by the creek. But out in the backyard, where the shed is, I don't mow the grass past the shed. So for like a 3 by 12 area ish, like a big rectangle, it's just meadow. It's just growing up, and that's where like all the fireflies hang out. That's not that crazy, but then opening the front door and looking out and seeing, like, especially between houses, it's pretty cool. I'll get a video, but I should go to the field like around sunset. Only thing is, there's also mosquitoes now.
Yeah. All the wetness we've had lately. They're gonna get you.
All the moisture.
Yep.
What other middle-aged things are you into?
Honestly, when I thought of this, I wasn't thinking this was a middle-aged thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm thinking about it, I think it might be it might be along the lines of like how everybody thinks, well, not everybody, but a lot of people think like the generation they grew up in had the best music.
Mm-hmm.
Then I forgot what got me thinking about this at some point, but I came and thought, like, I think that the 1990s were the most diverse decade for music in history.
Okay.
I said it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I wrote down a bunch of just different music stuff from the 90s. Like, I mean, you had the end of the hair metal.
Okay.
You had the rise of grunge and alt-rock.
Mm-hmm.
You had the return of heavy metal and the birth of a lot of different new metals. Now, getting away from just rock and metal per se, you had the ska era.
There's definitely not as much ska.
You had the pop punk and the punk era.
Okay.
You had the Latin music, your Ricky Martins and whatnot. You had your Orlando pop, manufactured pop, which is like your NSYNCs and Backstreet Boys and.
Okay, that's called Orlando pop. What'd you call it?
Orlando manufactured pop.
What does Orlando have to do with it?
Because a lot of these like were kids from like the Disney family.
Oh, okay.
And all these bands were put together in Orlando.
Got it. Okay.
You had all the female singer-songwriters and like the fair stuff, and you had the East Coast, West Coast hip hop rivalries and hip hop in general. You had 90s country, Garth Brooks and
strong country era.
Really, the rise of like electronica, or what it started to form itself. Indie rock, like Pixies,
Nice.
like neo soul, Lauryn Hill, people like that. Just R&B in general, like Boyz II Men. And to top it all off, we had swing music. Like, do you remember that swing era?
I do. There's a famous Daria episode that focuses on that, yeah.
So, I mean, and I'm sure I'm missing a bit, but, like, for a 10-year period, that's a lot of different music stuff to be going on.
When you said the diversity of music, my head went straight to the things that are new to me since 2015-ish. Like, Churches is a band I'm always talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a strong electronic and indie focus. And I was thinking electronic, but then you're right, in the 90s there was electronic music that...
Daft Punk?
Yeah. I think it's like European stuff that...
Oh, well, Daft Punk's European.
Yeah, okay. That's true. But definitely I think...
But I know what you mean.
There's like an infomercial of all those songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a lot of the seeds are definitely planted, yeah.
Like Cotton Eye Joe.
Uh-huh.
That was done by a European group, electronic dance group.
That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about it, like, that's a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. I do think of music especially in this way, but content creation generally as like a funnel, where right now we're in like the largest part of the funnel just because everybody can create anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that funnel shrinking and shrinking kind of dramatically the further back you go, and probably the 90s is where it like opened up. But prior to that, just the options. Like, and one time I listened to Duran Duran from like sort of beginning to end, and you can see the evolution of them from like what they were in the 80s to by the time they finished in the early 90s, it was kind of an electronic thing. And I wanted to, and I think I thought of a couple different bands, like Red Hot Chili Peppers even, in this way, of how they bridge decades, and how they're like, they'll start one thing and end some totally other thing, and how it kind of tells the story of like how music evolves in that period of time. I could probably string together a few bands like that, and I think definitely Duran Duran would be maybe the beginning of that, just because of like how old I am and where I fit into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can only go so far back before there's like 3 options of music. And you know what people don't think about a lot is when you're listening to the classical music and stuff, and you're like, oh, Mozart, Beethoven, and all that. How like music and art was not for everybody. It was not like for you and me. It was for like very rich people.
Right. No one knew that stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, like even nowadays, like the funnel, like you said, is huge, and there's tons of stuff being put out there. So it's probably more quote unquote diverse out there just in general. But all the stuff I listed were on all the radio, like the radio stations. Like it's what everybody heard. Everybody could hear all of that.
Yeah.
That's what you were given. Like you didn't have to go find it. Like now that doesn't happen.
It's a totally different mechanism for getting to the art now. Because people talk about this with TV, where there used to be like 3 news stations. And similarly, it used to be like, if you're going to listen to music, it's going to be on a CD or a tape or some medium like that. Or like you have to go to a store and buy that. Or it's going to be offered to you on the radio, but there's like a finite number of radio stations. And now the paradigm is gone. It's like all the music all the time. You find it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe the 90s weren't the most musically diverse, but I think it might have been the most magical decade for music.
I think you have 2 different lines that intersect in the 90s of the diversity, and like maybe the diversity kept going up after that, but that delivery mechanism of number of channels to get to that or number of access points to get to it, where that was the sweet part, where it was, here's all of this stuff, and here's us offering it to you. And even, I guess they don't intersect, because now we still have radio and we still have like physical media, but most, I presume most people that are listening to music are getting it through a streaming service. Yeah.
I still just listen to the terrestrial radio station in the car every time I drive, just because I have a crappy car that doesn't have a way for me to integrate my phone into it really. And I listen to the like alternative rock station, like what would have been 94.5 The Buzz back in Houston.
96.5 The Mix. 104.1 KRBE.
I was trying. I knew the 104.1, but I was trying to think of what came after that. RBE. Rock 101 KLOL.
Nice. KLOL.
But yeah, still, when I listen to the station here, it is 85 to 90% exactly what they played 20 years ago on
huge point,
94.5. And then with like 10 to 15% of some new stuff sprinkled in, but most of the time that new stuff is by people that were on like Blink-182's new stuff, Green Day's new stuff. Every once in a while, something new will make it on, but mostly it'll go on just. They'll do it when they're hyping up like the release of the album or there's a tour coming. They'll throw it in rotation, but then it'll come out eventually and just go back to being Stone Temple Pilots.
Third Eye Blind.
Third Eye Blind. Yeah, which is pretty wild.
When I'm in Ashley's car, I listen in my headbuds to my phone. So like you don't or earbuds.
Well, for the longest time, I thought that was illegal, but it has to not be illegal now because of AirPods and everybody's wearing them all the time. Maybe it's like over the ear covers that you're not allowed to wear while driving.
Good point. I could see that being a distraction, or you're not hearing something you should.
Right, like you need to hear a siren if there's someone coming up behind, like an ambulance coming up behind you or something.
That's fair. For the most part, though, if I'm listening to terrestrial radio, it's talk radio. And if this is one of my middle-aged things, that music at this point in my life I can only listen to with earbuds, because there's so much that gets missed or lost in the downstep of quality listening to it in the car off the car speakers with the road noise. Like, it was totally still. I think the sound system in my car is actually pretty good. And might catch everything and have a fun, enjoyable experience, but once you're moving in the car and the road noises, it's not the same experience listening to the music with your earbuds. Versus in the car, I'm always listening to podcasts, because if like you miss something or the quality's not as good, the words are still the words, and as long as you're making out the words, you're getting the point of it. And yeah, just listening to music in the car is not. It used to be like all I did. When I came back from deployment and had that job where I was selling floor and flooring to all these people, I was driving a lot. And I have this playlist on Google Music, but I call it the Golden Age.
Yeah.
Because I said it was a golden age in radio. And it's things like Tame Impala. I should have thought about this before I started talking about it. But there were a bunch of songs that came out in that 2014, 2015, or not came out, but were on the radio. They probably came out like a year or two before. But they're just bangers. And I was like, I haven't listened to the radio in forever. And I was just like listening to the radio because these songs were like 7 songs, 7 different bands that were like in rotation on whatever Austin's 94.5 is. And I was so impressed that I like kept that as a playlist that I have on my phone or on Google Music. And I'm gonna make little eras playlists of like, these were the.
What a good idea!
Yeah,
I can't believe no one's thought of that.
These are the songs that were like that job, and these were the songs that the other one I'm most excited about is the music that I was listening to at MoCo, like between the end of high school and the beginning of Ash, because like once Ash enters the scene, then like 9 Inch Nails becomes a big deal. But prior to that, things like At the Drive-In, things like Brand New,
Mars Volta.
Mars Volta for sure. That was a good era. A lot of good like little eras in the music I was listening to, and now I'm just listening to Churches over and over again.
That's funny.
I know what I like.
I don't know. I'm still pretty open. Like, I listen to new stuff all the time, and like stuff that I wouldn't normally think. And that's something else that I've noticed about me getting older. Like, thinking back when I was younger, I was kind of a little prick sometimes. Like, in terms of like my views on music.
Real picky.
Real picky, and I looked down on people who like stuff that I thought was you shouldn't like.
Real pretentious.
Yeah. But I've definitely outgrown that, and I allow myself to like whatever I like, and I allow people to like whatever they like, even if I don't like it. Just if it makes them happy, that's cool.
Yeah, I probably still like to explore what makes them happy about it. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I've changed my mind on so many things that I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I used to not like Tool, Kelly. When Jerry was listening to Tool, I'd be like, it's too loud. It's too, what is happening? You know?
It took me years to get into Tool because it was just, I didn't understand it.
Used to real simple and complimentary 4 pieces in a band. And it's like, what is that? That drum thing is its own thing, and it's a weird thing.
I was like, I can't tap my foot along with
right
to this song. Like,
it's either 4/4 or 3/4. This is weird.
Yeah, I don't like it. Yeah. What a journey it's been over the years with music.
Mm-hmm. Middle-aged stuff.
Yeah.
In current events, we finished The Expanse last night.
Woo! Finally. Been watching that show for over 5 years.
It's impressive. I loved it.
Good.
Unfortunately, there is definitely a feeling of being rushed. Like,
Yeah.
I said this about Three Body Problem, where even without having read the material, it feels rushed. Like, it feels like there's a lot more to that. Like, you just skipped over a bunch right there. But satisfying ending for me. I guess they aren't gonna keep doing it because it already went from Sci-Fi to Amazon, and Amazon has all the money that you could have if they wanted to keep doing it, and it stopped in 2021. It's still listed as a season finale instead of a series finale.
Right.
And there's a lot more to be explored. I don't know if there's more books. Apparently there are more books listening to Jer and Ash.
Mm-hmm.
Three Body Problem is an example of a trilogy where a great show was made out of it, and I was like, I don't want to read the books, I don't want to spoil the show and what I'm going to see. But then when I saw what I saw, I was like, I have to know. And got into, now we're in the second book in Three Body Problem, and it's amazing. And I know there's so much more content in the Expanse universe, and like multiple novellas, and I don't know if I want to get into all that. Just to see like where the story goes after this.
Just read the
Wiki?
summaries on Wiki. That's what I'd do. I mean, yeah, it wasn't a bad show. It was just never a show that I was invested in. Like, I just never... I don't know.
I don't see how. It's got everything.
I understand.
Game of Thrones.
I mean, that's the thing. It was too much. It was too much like Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones was too much. Like, I don't like having to like worry about things when I'm watching shows and having to keep track of 15,000 different storylines.
So much worry, so few laughs.
Just so much mental energy,
emotional damage.
There's so much you gotta be thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think literally every episode for 5 years was the last 5 seconds. You're like, what?
Yeah, I'm much more of like a Firefly kind of guy.
Nice, yeah.
That's the kind of space show I get behind.
Just a chuckle and those guys.
Yeah, with a little bit of drama, a little bit of, oh no, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much a nice bow at the end of every episode.
Yeah. I like the X-Files endings, which are kind of in between that. Of, like, more or less happy ending. But then, like, sometimes there's, like, a pair of eyes looking at you from the toilet. Or a dark closet. And you're like, oh, that's a problem for another time.
Silly.
Ash and I started watching... We watched, like, 8 episodes. We didn't watch all of Star Trek, the original series.
Mm.
But we wanted to get into... We love Deep Space Nine. We just finished Voyager. Are you familiar in like the release order?
No.
Okay. When we were... Okay, in my life, I started watching Next Generation in the 90s.
Mm.
My parents were watching it before that because Next Generation came out, the TV show came out in 87. And Next Generation was a huge deal for me in the 90s, and then Deep Space Nine spun off of Next Generation, and then Voyager also kicked off. I think for a while all 3 were airing, but then the general order of it is like Next Generation overlapped with Deep Space Nine, Next Generation ended, and Voyager overlapped with Deep Space Nine. And then Voyager ended, and then there wasn't any Star Trek content for a while. And I was watching Deep Space Nine in 2020, like during COVID, and Ash started watching it over my shoulder, and then she got into it, and then boom, like, all the long as we've known each other, greatest things have been there have been these like multiple things that happen to just push our relationship to all it up. Deep Space Nine was one of those, and so then we watched Voyager. We just finished Voyager, and she's like, I want Next Generation. I was like, all right, well, how would we do that? Because since then, there have been like 3 new Star Trek shows that chronologically, I think, predate Next Generation. So it's like, we're going to watch those, and some of them are still being released. And after a lot of study and research, like what we're going to do is the original series came out in the late 60s, and we're not going to watch all of that. We'll watch like 8 episodes like that are hand-chosen because they play into the rest of the universe that comes after that. So we watched those, and now we've started watching Star Trek the Motion Picture, which there was, I think it came out in 66, so like 3 seasons from 66 to 69, like height of the Vietnam War and height of the Cold War. And then there wasn't anything for a decade until 1979 when the motion picture came out. It's the cast and crew from the original series, and then from 79 through 86 there were 4 movies, and then the Next Generation started. So we'll watch the 6 movies and then start Star Trek Next Generation, which will probably take us like a decade to finish.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's been great, though. It's been great because you can really tell how much, especially with the original series, how much the end of World War II and being in the Cold War was so influential to the show and, like, the themes and all that. At the same time that it's, like, just some real 1960 shit. As far as, like, you can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty sure Jared and I watched the original season or series or whatever back at Sirocco. And yeah, it's interesting. Which Star Trek movie is it where there's whales?
And that is 4.
Okay.
It's the 1986 one.
Okay. I've seen parts of that movie. I don't know if I've seen the whole thing. I don't think I've seen any of the other ones. Or those old ones.
My favorite, and the one that comes up in the shows a lot, is the 6th and final movie. And I can't wait till we get there. 'Cause even starting the first movie, like the 1979 movie, having watched like a bunch of Star Trek in the future, and then the little bit of the original series we just watched, it's really cool. And I love how much Ash loves it. And for me, I've watched all these movies multiple times, and I get to... But it's been probably a decade.
Yeah.
So getting to watch them again and watch them with Ash is cool.
If you had to put your allegiance with one, would it be Star Trek or Star Wars?
That's real tough.
Or Battlestar Galactica?
I think that's going to be like a whole can of worms, honestly. I think we start watching that and loving it, and that will also take 10 years to finish. Haven't even come close to it. The only thing I know about Battlestar Galactica is from a skit in Portlandia, where they get addicted to watching Battlestar Galactica. It's really tough. Like, I could just talk for another 43 minutes about what I like about each of them. Probably it'd be Star Trek.
I mean, it sounds like it'd be Star Trek.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot more Star Trek content out there, and you've
I don't know, though.
taken it in.
I was thinking about that when you asked the question, because, like, for the majority of history, that would have been true. But now, like, Star Wars is pumping out so much content. Like, multiple shows at the same time.
Yeah, I guess.
There's a lot of Star Wars stuff I haven't seen. The Book of Boba Fett and Osaka, Ashka, whatever her name is.
Oshkosh bagosh.
There's the whole, like, animated everything. Haven't watched any of that. A lot of Star Wars stuff right now. But I think Star Trek would take the win because it's based in our universe. It's about us. Instead of Star Wars, which is a space
Galaxy
novella.
far, far away.
Yeah. Which is cool. a lot to love about Star Wars, but it is like kind of based in the supernatural with like the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek is, sci-fi, and I feel like they're doing different things. Well, yeah, there's a moral story and a moral arc to Star Wars and the Star Wars universe, but I think that Star Trek episodically, like every 45 minutes, tries to do the same thing of like, here's a fun, fancy thing that's happening in space, but without much critical thinking at all. You can get to like, oh, this is actually about something that happens here, present day Earth in the U.S. every day. You can get the parallels pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I appreciate that.
Kind of got me want to watch some Star Trek
Yeah, I hear
and some Battlestar Galactica.
Deep Space Nine. Go for that.
Hmm.
Yeah. That thing I just said of telling a moral arc and having a story episode to episode, probably true for all the Star Treks, but Deep Space Nine I felt was the most specific and relevant to like the U.S. and the war on terror and what was going on in that time.
Mm.
And it's real. It was dark for Star Trek at the time. I'm sure they've got like darker stuff now, but at least then it's pretty dark. And that's where Ash got into it, so you can get into it there.
Nice.
But then also there's a meme that goes something like, I like how Star Trek will have the best piece of art and thoughtful fiction in a decade, and then the very next episode is like the worst, silliest thing on TV in a decade. And that's fun too.
Yeah, I like silly stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right, next time we'll talk about why I like the USFL so much, because we are 47 minutes in.
Yep. Okie doke. I got nothing else.
Word. I might go for a walk. Although probably my favorite things are flooded over right now.
Mm.
Yeah, but definitely I'll get some gym time in. And we actually did a lot of gym time yesterday, so I might just like chill today. Might play Baldur's Gate with the missus for at least 90 hours or 90 minutes.
Very cool. I might play a game as well. I won the World Series in my baseball game. Finished the season with 179 home runs. And I only played 90 games because I started the season in minors. So I just gotten drafted. So I'm like projected to hit over 300 home runs in this next year.
That's crazy, Kelly. You're so silly. I'm gonna go work on my fantasy football practice.
Alright. Thanks everyone who made it to the end. We love y'all. Be safe. Have a great week. See you next time.
Every time I